Win big in 2023 with Team Sync from RotoBaller. Import your fantasy teams and sync your leagues. Get customized tools and tailored advice for your specific rosters and scoring settings, including live recommendations from the Live Draft Assistant, Free Agent Finder, and Lineup Optimizer. Sync an unlimited amount of NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL fantasy teams from all of the major fantasy platforms. Get a discount for any premium pass using my promo code KNUCKLER, KNUCKLER. Just visit rotoballer.com/radio and start rotoballing like a boss. With Christmas right around the corner, makes a great gift for the rotoballer in your life. And this podcast is brought to you by Parlay Play Fantasy Sports. Use my referral link and my referral code RotoBrady. Get yourself a sweet, sweet deposit bonus on that platform. Get into their player prop parlay contests. They have free contests. They have paid contests. They're on NBA, NFL. I know they're on MMA, and they're on everything. So go on there. That's a really fun new platform. Enjoyable gaming there at Parlay Play Fantasy Sports. And what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove bringing you episode 115 of RotoBaller's official MMA podcast. Tap that. And we are looking forward to UFC Sau Paulo this weekend.
Break out the red panties.
We've got 13 fights on the UFC Fight Night Sau Paulo card. The main event is still happening despite some weird stuff going on with Derek Lewis. First off, you can follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. That's where I make picks for all major MMA events. Hell, we got Rise and Landmark 7 this weekend, One Fight Night 16. We got Octagon 48, LFA 171. There's Cage Fury this weekend. I'm going to try to make picks for as much of that as I possibly can. You can find all that on Twitter at RotoBrady. Follow the podcast. Like, subscribe, leave favorable reviews wherever you can. That's at Tap That MMA Podcast at the Facebook page, YouTube channel, and on Spotify. Check out my most recent interlude episodes, too. I had some great Hawaiian fighting action last week. The Flying Hawaiian Joshua Pereira and the Fighting Hawaiian Kai Kamaka III, formerly of the UFC, now on a 3-fight Bellator winning streak. Go check out those episodes. Me and Connor Bone Sloan had a great conversation with Kai Kamaka, and Joshua Pereira is a fantastic flyweight prospect out of the Columbus area. So check that stuff out. That was fun to do. It's fun to listen to. We've got 13 fights at UFC Sau Paulo. It's going down at 6 p.m. on Saturday. That means if my wife is not in labor, then I will be in the chat from 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturday. You know, we got a couple of weeks left until that projected due date. So 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturday, RotoBaller MMA Discord. Be there or be square. Come out and chat about UFC Sau Paulo. 13 fights on the card, starting off with a lightweight matchup between Kyle Fernandez and Mark Diakis. A strawweight fight between Montserrat Ruiz and Eduarda Mora. A strawweight fight between Angela Hill and Denise Gomez. Light heavyweight, 9-0, Vitor Petrino against Modestas Bukauskas. Bantamweight, Daniel Marcos of Peru against Victor Hugo. Welterweight, Elizu Zaleski and Renat Fakhretdinov at 22-2. A 165-pound catchweight fight because Elvis Brenner was originally supposed to fight Esteban Ribovic. There was a couple different replacements on this card. So he's fighting Kainan Kruczewski. Lightweight, Ismail Bonfim against Vink Pichel. Middleweight, Rodolfo Vieira against Armen Petrosyan. Did I say middleweight? That's middleweight. Another middleweight fight, and this one's a banger. Middleweight prospect, 14-1, ranked 16th in the world according to Tapology.com. Cal Borello against Abus Magomedov. Heavyweight, Rodrigo Nascimento against Danteo Mays. Welterweight, the co-main event, Nicholas Dalby against Gabriel Bonfim. And then a heavyweight main event. It was supposed to originally be Jailton Almeida versus Curtis Blades. And folks, I swear I picked the name of this episode, Get Out of Jailton Free Card, before this happened. This all happened with Derek Lewis. But it is Jailton Almeida against Derek the Black Beast Lewis. Derek Lewis, of course, was apparently like caught going like 150 miles per hour in his Lamborghini in like a 55 mile per hour zone. And then his response was like, that wasn't even me. Did you see that guy? He had hair. I don't even think that was me. What? What the hell does that mean? Was it you or not? Either way, man, Derek Lewis seems to still be fighting. There was a little bit of confusion about that earlier this week, but every indication I'm seeing, including the press conference, says that Derek Lewis is still going to be fighting Jailton Almeida. With that, let's get started with, well, what is the first fight that we're starting off with here? Cal Fernandez and Mark Diakise. Mark Diakise is the minus 192 favorite. Fernandez, the plus 160 underdog. Now, Fernandez, let's start with him. 8-1 as a professional. I don't really even have his age, like on Tapology. Always a weird sign. 6 of his professional wins came inside the distance, 4 by knockout. He has only lost once by decision in his career. That was at LFA 111 back in July of 2021. On a 2-fight winning streak in LFA. Coming off of a head kick knockout over Felipe Douglas March of this year. Shudo Brazil experience. You know, some quality wins. I mean, the combined record of his 2 last opponents in LFA was 27-5. So, you know, solid work from him for sure. Mark Diakise, winner of 2 of his last 6 fights. Those wins came against Vyacheslav Borshev and Damir Hadzovic by decision. In between, he lost to Rafael Fazayev, Rafael Alves, Michael Johnson, and Joel Alvarez. Hard to blame him, really, for 2 solid wins, really. He landed a combined 19 takedowns, but only 30 combined strikes, granted against Damir Hadzovic and Vyacheslav Borshev. I think that the quality of wins and the quality of losses, I think Mark Diakise is actually a pretty good value here at minus 192. I think that, and let's see, I forget if this was originally supposed to be anything different. It was not. So this was originally the matchup. Diakise against someone who is, new to the UFC. This guy has landed a combined 26 takedowns in his last 4 wins. Now, that dates back to March of 2019. He's fought some really good fighters in the UFC. But against a guy who's new to the UFC, can he get at least 3 takedowns and stifle that guy's offense enough? I think that he can. Mark Diakise probably wins this fight about 70 to 75 times out of 100. Minus 192, I think, is an excellent value. And Diakise by decision, plus 150. Hit it. Ow! Next up, we got Eduardo Mora and Montserrat Ruiz. Mora, the minus 625 favorite. Ruiz, the plus 455 underdog. Let's start off then with Eduardo Mora, coming off a round 1 rear naked choke against Janina Silva, August of this year. Ended that fight really quickly at the Contender Series. Montserrat Ruiz will be at a 3-inch reach disadvantage. She is 1 year older than Mora. Let me make sure. Why did I double check that? Ruiz has not won since March of 2021 at the UFC level. She remains 10-3 as a professional. Just turned 30. And it's not like she had any wins, in between. She had the win against Cheyenne Vlismas back in March of 2021. Wasn't an overly impressive win either. She had 4 takedowns, but got outstruck 31-15. She has lost 2 in a row. Granted, the first one was to Amanda Lemos by first-round knockout, July of 2021, and then she returned most recently and got dominated against Jacqueline Amorim. That was in August of this year. She got knocked out in round 3. She got outstruck 86-6.
Don't do this. You cannot do this,
But I'm not impressed by your performance, and I look forward to...
Damn, it's rare that a fight warrants both of those sound drops. Look, I don't know, and let's take a look at Mora, because she's 9-0 as a pro, 29 years old. I'm even seeing that she might have a 5-inch reach advantage. She has only won one fight in her career by decision, and that was back in September of 2022. Every other fight has been finished inside the distance, 5 subs, 3 knockouts. I think Ruiz is kind of dead in the water here. Usually I could say, well, one of your losses to Amanda Lema. But last time out, I mean, she looked like there was just nothing in the tank against a talented level of opponent, or, at least as talented as Jacqueline Amorim. So I do think Mora wins this fight like 85 times out of 100. Mora inside the distance, minus 150. I actually think that is the best value. I don't think there's any need to split hairs at that point if you're getting plus money for minus 150. Solid value. Never mind. I think that is very fair. Even though you're not getting that at plus money, I don't think that there's any reason to split those hairs for the extra reward. I think that is the best value. Mora inside the distance, minus 150. Hit it. Next up, we got another strawweight matchup. One me and Blood Money MMA bets apparently agree upon. Angela Hill versus Denise Gomez. Angela Hill is the plus 114 underdog. Gomez the minus 135 favorite. Let's start with Denise Gomez, winner of 3 of her last 4 fights. The last 2 wins are by knockout against Bruna Brazil and Yasmin Yaragui. She absolutely dominated Yaragui July of this year. En route to a first-round knockout. There we go. 17 strikes to nothing. Yasmin did not land a statistic, if that says anything. Her one loss by unanimous decision to Loma Lubunme. She got outstruck 48-19, taken down 4 times. That is going to be the most telling fight for projecting how this one goes against Angela Lee. Denise Gomez was born in 1999. I'm still convinced that they stopped making fighters after the year 2000. It's always shocking to me when people were born in the 2000s and are also in the UFC, but it's happening more and more, obviously. Gomez against Bruna Brazil outstruck her 54-15 and took her down 3 times en route to a second-round TKO. Angela Hill, despite a lot, like 6 losses since May of 2020, because she has remained active as hell. Remember that from September 2019 to February 2020, she actually had a 3-fight winning streak, including Ariana Carnelossi, Hannah Cyphers, and Loma Lubunme. Her loss before that was to Yan Xiaonan. Then she loses fights to Claudia Gadella, Michelle Watterson Gomez. And look, it's not just that she beat Loma Lubunme by unanimous decision. It was a close fight where the striking was kept close, but it's the kind of fight that both of those 2 fighters bring. I think Angela Hill is the more well-rounded martial artist. I think Angela Hill's kickboxing is at least going to keep Denise Gomez at bay. There's a lot of argument on the internet about how this particular fight is going to go. But what you're betting on is that Angela Hill can make this a close fight and that this can be anyone's fight by the time it goes to the judges' scorecards. I think Angela Hill will keep the fight very close. I think that Angela Hill can at least land 1 or 2 takedowns and can prevent Denise Gomez from getting her down to the ground. And I don't even think she needs to do that. I think if she just keeps the scoring close, her kickboxing always yields close results on the judges' scorecards. I think this fight is going the distance. Now, most recently, because she had a 3-fight losing streak to Tisha Torres, Amanda Lemos, and Virna Jandiroba, all decision losses. Then 2 wins in a row against Lupi Godinez and Emily Ducote. She landed 182 strikes against Emily Ducote and 85 against Lupi. Then, last time out, she took a loss to Mackenzie Dern May of this year by unanimous decision over the course of 5 rounds. She did get kind of tuned up, 126-66 and taken down 3 times. Denise Gomez, is obviously the younger, more upwardly projecting fighter of the 2. But I have not been, overall, super impressed by Denise Gomez. Bruna Brazil's a solid win against someone who's kind of at, a similar stage in her career. These are solid wins against Bruna Brazil and Yasmin Uruguay. But the Loma Boonmay fight, I think, shows what a well-rounded, a little bit more experienced martial artist can do against her. I think Angela Hill's kickboxing keeps Denise Gomez at a distance, keeps the fight close, and I think ultimately Angela Hill has a fantastic opportunity to win this fight by decision. Angela Hill, this is a 50-50 fight, maybe even 55 out of 100 for Angela Hill. So plus 114, hit it. And Angela Hill by decision, plus 140. That is one of my locks of the evening. Hit it. Next up, after 2 strawweight fights in a row, we got a light heavyweight matchup between Vitor Petrino and Modestas Bukauskas. Vitor Petrino, the minus 238 favorite. Modestas Bukauskas, the plus 195 underdog. Let's start with Modestas. This is a guy that I feel like I was hard on for, the stretch of his 3 straight losses against Jimmy Crute, Michael Alexijuk, and Khalil Roundtree. That fight with Michael Alexijuk, too, was so close, where it was the only statistics were 58-56 in the striking for Bukauskas in a split decision loss. Bukauskas had a first-round knockout in his UFC debut over Andreas Michailidis. He is now on a 2-fight winning streak against Tyson Pedro by unanimous decision back in February of this year, and Zach Pauga, where he kind of came back, from the dead in that 3rd round back in June of this year. He did get outstruck 67-56 by Pauga and taken down once, but still ended up winning the fight. Let's say the scoring doesn't make any sense. Split decision victory, or he's unanimous. Oh, he won 30-27, 29-28, 29-28. Very interesting. It was a great fight against Zach Pauga for sure. Vitor Petrino, 3 years younger. He will have a 1-inch reach disadvantage. He is on a 3-fight winning streak entering the UFC, a 2nd-round knockout in the Contender Series over Rodolfo Beato, a unanimous decision victory over Anton Turkalej, where he outstruck him 39-33 and took him down 7 times to 5 March of this year, and then a win against Marcin Prachnio by 3rd-round arm triangle choke. Prachnio outstruck him 55-44, but Petrino landed 4 takedowns en route to the grappling advantage and ultimately a 3rd-round submission. I would love to believe in Modestas Bukauskas. I really would. My big issue, because he's impressed, at least, in coming back from a 3-fight losing streak against, a solid set of fighters. The problem is the very limited skill set range of the guys that he's beaten since then in Tyson Pedro and Zach Pauga. Those guys are great in the stand-up department, not really a threat anywhere else. Well, Vitor Petrino has landed 11 takedowns and a combined 83 strikes in his last 2 fights, both this year against solid opponents. I think that Vitor Petrino wins. I think that Modestas Bukauskas is able to survive, though. And that's hard to say because it's like, do I think Petrino subs Modestas Bukauskas? I think that's the 2nd most likely option for Petrino. I think more likely he just gets a lot of takedowns and, at least keeps the striking close, if not wins the striking department, and lands more strikes both on the ground and on the feet. I think that Petrino is a very dangerous fighter and is very skilled, clearly, in what he's been able to do against in his last 2 fights, let alone the knockout that he got in the Contender Series. I just think that Bukauskas is not well-rounded enough to be able to handle Petrino. So, Petrino probably wins this fight 75 times out of 100. I think that's fair. I think Modestas can probably keep it close. I wouldn't be surprised if let's say Petrino is only able to land anywhere from 2 to 4 takedowns. The striking's close. I could see this being a very close decision. But Petrino by decision, plus 250. Hit it. My second favorite bet there would be like Petrino inside the distance at plus 110. I think Petrino inside the distance plus 110. And then I would go Bukauskas by decision plus 450. That's how I think those shake out. Interesting light heavyweight fight there. Next up, we got a bantamweight matchup between Victor Hugo and Daniel Marcos. Wait. Yes. Victor Hugo, the plus 200 underdog, and Daniel Marcos, the minus 245 favorite. Let us talk first about Victor Hugo, who we just saw on the Contender Series October 3rd. He got a round 2 knee bar over Eduardo Torres Count. Before that, Victor Hugo, 24-4, 30 years old, 8 career wins by knockout, 9 by submission, 7 by decision. He has not lost since 2014 against, it doesn't matter who it's against. It was in Warrior Combat 1. So his 4 losses all came before 2014. He's been on a big winning streak since then in Aspera FC, solid organization. He was in Pancrase for 1 fight. Solid combined records of his opponents, at least. And, of late, even though the organizations aren't super recognizable. Then we got Daniel Marcos. Born in 1993, he will be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. But Daniel Marcos deserves to be the favorite here. All right, Daniel Marcos, 3 wins in the UFC, 0 losses. A decision in the Contender Series where he landed 81 strikes and a knockdown against Brandon Lewis. A second-round knockout against Simon Oliveira, January of this year. And then a split decision victory over Davy Grant. July of this year, he got outstruck 70-48, but landed a takedown. Ended up winning the fight 29-28 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. So that was a close matchup, but a solid win against an opponent like Davy Grant. And that's what I think, takes this. 2 wins in the last year over opponent like Simon Oliveira, for instance. I think based on what he's done, I think that we have to say that he is about a similar level to Victor Hugo. I think they're at least very comparable. And then a win against Davy Grant, even keeping that fight really close, regardless of who you think actually won that fight, I think says a lot. So, that's the only problem is like how Victor Hugo hasn't lost in such a long time. I think that the best bet is like what? I suppose you could go like Marcos minus 245 just to hold something together, like in a situation for a parlay and whatnot. Hugo's been finished before. That was like almost a decade ago, which is like absolutely insane. It's just a weird like career timeline for him. So I don't know. I think if I have to pick something, maybe we take a little risk there and say that like Hugo maybe isn't, maybe this is a really rough UFC debut to get, and go Daniel Marcos inside the distance plus 120. And then I think the second best move would be Marcos by decision plus 225. A little less sure there, but I'm very sure about minus 245. Either as a safety net bet or, putting something in a parlay. That it's just like, it's hard. Victor Hugo's a weird fighter, especially when you're trying to project how he might lose this one. Next up, we got a welterweight matchup between Renat Fakhretdinov, who I think is going to be popular in DFS this week, and Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. Fakhretdinov, for some reason, I'm going to go all the way back up at bestfightodds.com. Fakhretdinov is the minus 375 favorite. Zaleski, the plus 295 underdog. Let's start with Elizeu. Elizeu actually winner of 3 of his last 4. In fact, Elizeu Zaleski only with 2 losses in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Damn it. Lost kind of count there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 fights in the UFC since April of 2016. Only 2 losses. Wins over Lyman Good, Max Griffin, Sean Strickland, May of 2018. Luigi Vendramini, Curtis Melinder, Alexei Kunchenko, Benoit Saint-Denis, who he outstruck 149-67 back in October of 2021, then a bit of a layoff until June of 2023, then a split decision victory over Abubakar Nurmagomedov. June of this year, outstruck him 42-29, did get taken down once. The two losses in that stretch, a third-round knockout to Li Jiangliang, August of 2019, and a split decision loss to Muslim Salikov in a fight where Zaleski outstruck him 46-40. Damn! Elizeu Zaleski, way more impressive of a resume than you would guess. That includes the UFC middleweight champion 5 years ago. So Elizeu is, like, he just screams that guy of, like, you think, like, he's an underwhelming guy, and then you look at it, it's like, God, this guy has barely lost in a decade in the UFC. Rinat Fakhretdinov, 3 wins in the UFC, 3-0. Came in with 2 decision victories over Andreas Michailidis, who he outstruck 45-18 and took down 5 times to 0. Brian Battle, who he outstruck 43-3, knocked down once, took down 7 times to 0. That was December of 2022. Kevin Lee was his last win, July of this year. I wish that wasn't the case. It was a first-round guillotine against a Kevin Lee who has done almost the opposite of Elizeu Zaleski in that stretch of time. Lost a lot despite the quality of opponents that he's fought. I don't mean to take away from him there. But, you know, there is a bit of a question mark next to so many, Fakhretdinov's wins. You know, I know the Pooh Bear fight was kind of a last-second thing. He was a replacement. And Kevin Lee, it's like, what the hell does that win mean at welterweight this late into Kevin Lee's career? So, you know, at the very least, regardless of what I'm about to say, Elizeu Zaleski.
Nick, one comment, man, one comment.
No, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
Don't be scared, Elizeu Zaleski. The legs of Abubakar Nurmagomedov, Benoit Saint-Denis, keeping it close with Muslim Salikov. These are fighters that, you know, I mean, look at Abubakar Nurmagomedov. You know, he was never a big takedown guy, but, you know, he had gotten, you know, some solid wins before he took on Elizeu Zaleski. It's just like Zaleski has fought so many tough guys and come out with wins against a lot of them. You know, Li Jiangliang, you know, since grew in prominence since that victory over Elizeu. And Muslim Salikov, you know, is a guy that was at least landing, you know, like 2 takedowns at least, 2 or 3 against a lot of opponents. He did not take down Elizeu Zaleski once. That is a concern, but also, like, you look at Rinat Fakhretdinov, he didn't have to take Kevin Lee down, but he did land a combined 12 takedowns against Michailidis and Brian Battle. This is a tough one, right? Because, like, how do I think Zaleski probably, or, you know, I think Fakhretdinov, by decision, plus 175, I think is an excellent value. But, like, I still have to say, Elizeu Zaleski has a skill set to neutralize. You know, if you can take him down 5 or 7 times by this guy, by Fakhretdinov, that's going to be a problem. The question is Elizeu Zaleski's skill set kind of something that can neutralize a bit of that? He's just a well-rounded mixed martial artist, and he's good at making, you know, the fight at his pace. So, you know, I think Elizeu Zaleski probably wins this fight, especially with the question marks for Rinat Fakhretdinov. As much as we like him, I think Zaleski can win this fight 35 to 40 times out of 100. I think plus 295 is not a bad value at all. This is kind of up in the air, right? Like, because I think Zaleski, too, I mean, I think if he wins this fight, I think it's by unanimous decision, or, you know, by decision at the very least. I think this fight probably goes the distance, too. I think if somebody does get an inside the distance win, that will be Fakhretdinov. And that at minus 110, that's a solid value, too. You know, I'm way more comfortable picking a prop for Fakhretdinov. But I think Zaleski at plus 295, I cannot ignore the value of that. So, I don't know. That's a really tough one. If you don't feel comfortable betting on this one, just enjoy watching it. But that's what I think as far as, you know, the likely outcomes of that one. Next up, a catchweight fight between Elvis Brenner and Kainan Kuchewski. Brenner, Now I got to go all the way back down again for some reason. Anyway, Brenner, the -1. Hell no. Okay, I see now that they just have a... Not all the odds are up for Brenner and Kainan, but I'm seeing Brenner at about -210, -200. Kainan the plus 155, 175 underdog. So let's start with Kainan Krzyzewski. 15-1, 32 years old, a 73-inch reach. 13 of his career victories are inside the distance. 9 by submission. He's been knocked out once. That's his only loss. 2 wins by decision. His last loss was at Cage 47, April of 2019, against Alexei Montekivi. Since a no contest that was overturned at Aries FC in March of 2022, and he had to win an LFA before that against Junior Luis. All LFA wins are important to mention. Then he had 3 straight wins in Jungle Fight. From July of 2022 to April of 2023, he was the Jungle Fight lightweight champion. 2nd round knockout against Victor Moraes. A 4th round guillotine over John David. And a round 5. So this guy's good in championship rounds. That's not going to come up in this fight. I think that's going to be important. And that was by knockout over Thierry Lucas. Then gets a 1st round technical rear naked choke against Dylan Montalvo in the Contender Series September 19th of 2023. So right at the end of the Contender Series season. Then Elvis Brenner. Damn it. There we go. Brenner, winner of 2 straight entering the UFC. A split decision victory over Zubaira Tukagov. He got on trick 70-69 and won a split decision there February of this year. Then a 3rd round knockout over Guram Kutaladze July 1st of this year. He got on trick 85-65, but he landed a knockdown and 2 takedowns to 1. Solid stretch to start off his UFC career there for Elvis Brenner. You know, like, this is another one where, you know, I think that Kainan Krzyzewski is actually, like, a tougher opponent than maybe the odds are reflecting. Actually, you know, for a late replacement and for a guy making his UFC debut, plus 155, plus 175, really not underplaying him at all. Brenner, I think right now what you have to say is based on the run he's had in the UFC, I'm definitely impressed with Kainan Krzyzewski. I want to see him more in the UFC. This is a really tough fight for your, you know, for your entrance examination, as they say. I think that the best prop here, because I think Brenner probably wins this fight like 60-65 times out of 100. So I'm not betting a straight-up victor in this situation. I don't think the rewards are there for Kainan, for the question marks that are there. But, and the prop odds aren't out yet, but I go Brenner by TKO knockout. I think that is by far the most likely outcome for this fight. And so go ahead and hit that when the number's out, and I think it's going to be a good number. And I think that, like, Elvis Brenner, probably a solid DFS play this week as well. Hit it on both angles. Ow! Next up, we got a lightweight matchup between Ismail Bonfim and Vink Pichel. Ismail Bonfim, the minus 500 favorite. Pichel, the plus 380 underdog. Let's start off with Pichel. Winner of 3 of his last 4 fights. Pichel's actually been in the UFC for quite a good run. It started back in 2014. Then there was like a 3-year gap. Then he starts winning in 2017, 18. He's, you know, kind of had a lack of activity of late. You know, like he had a fight June of 2019, then August of 2020, August of 2021, and then April of 2022 was his last fight, which was a loss against Mark Madsen. By unanimous decision, he outstruck him 68-39, but got taken down 3 times to 1. That's how those fights tend to go against Mark Madsen. But, you know, before that, there were some solid names on that 3-fight winning streak. You know, 2 Ultimate Fighter alums from this season, Roosevelt Roberts and Austin Hubbard, who I think he definitively beat with a combined 131 strikes. He did only had 3 takedowns against Roosevelt Roberts. He got taken down 4 times, though, against Austin Hubbard. And then against Jim Miller, 41-14 on the striking, 3 takedowns to 2. Even when this guy takes you down a handful of times, you might still be able to take him down, because Gregor Gillespie got him down 7 times. He took Anthony Njokuani down 8 times. Garrett Whiteley down 8 times. Now, that was back in 2014. But still, like, the takedown numbers can be all over the place for Ving Pichel. And he was born in 1982, by the way. That can't be right. Ving Pichel, 14-3, 40 years old. Take that into account. The man is now 40 at this point, fighting Ismail Bonfim, who you might have heard is doing quite well in the UFC. Him and Gabriel Bonfim, the Bonfim brothers, started off in the UFC with a unanimous decision over Nairaman Abbasov in the Contender Series, outstriking him 85-45 with a knockdown and a takedown. Then a second-round flying knee knockout over Terrence T-Rex McKinney, January of this year. Then a loss most recently by first-round rear naked choke to Benoit Saint Denis. It was finished in the first round. It was 14-13 on the striking at that point for Bonfim, but he got taken down twice and out-grappled considerably by Benoit Saint Denis in that first round. How the hell does this one go, man? Like, Bonfim knocked out Terrence McKinney. Pichel has, the last time he was knocked out in the UFC was 2012. I don't know how to say this one goes. I'm at least comfortable enough to say, like, look, I think Pichel is a really solid fighter, like, for what he is at the age of 40. I think he's had a good run in the UFC over years, despite the lack of activity. But I think Ismail Bonfim, despite the loss to Benoit Saint Denis, who's just, like, picking up a full head of steam, I think that Bonfim is still, rightfully a heavily favored fighter here. Bonfim inside the distance, minus 115. Hit it. Bonfim by decision, plus 175. I guess that's my second favorite, prop of the fight. If I had to pick for Ving Pichel, I think I'd go by decision. Just if he got a handful of takedowns and kept the striking kind of close. I think that, so like Pichel by decision, plus 600. I don't think you're going to get a better value for him than that. But I go Bonfim inside the distance, minus 115. I agree with the odds makers there that is the most likely outcome of this fight. Bonfim wins this fight 80 to 85 times out of 100. So I'm not betting a straight-up victor. No way. Next up, we got a middleweight matchup between Rodolfo Vieira and Armen Petrosyan. Multiple Armen Petrosyans out there. Rodolfo Vieira is the favorite. Actually, no. I'm seeing this at even money some places. I'm seeing mostly Armen Petrosyan as the slight favorite. And I think that's been on the move. Because I know I saw Armen Petrosyan as the slight underdog, like very slight, in other places before tonight. But this is either Pick'em or Petrosyan is a slight favorite at minus 115 to Vieira being the minus 105. Very, very slight underdog. Let's start with Rodolfo Vieira. 2-2 in his last 4 fights. Winner of 2 of his last 3. Obviously, this guy gets a lot of submissions. All 4 of his UFC victories are by submission. 3 arm triangles, 1 rear naked choke, all against Oscar Piechota, August of 2019. Saperbeg Safarov, March of 2020. Dustin Stoltzfus, July of 2021. And then a second-round arm triangle choke against Cody Brundage last time out, April of this year. Impressively... he landed 49 strikes against Dustin Stoltzfus and 3 takedowns. That's all he'll ever have to do to be able to have a chance against fighters of this caliber. He landed 0 takedowns against Chris the Action Man Curtis, but landed 86 strikes. He got hit with 109. But still, when he was in a situation where he wasn't able to get the takedown against a stronger fighter and a good wrestler in Chris Curtis, he was able to at least land 86 strikes. So, look, if you're betting Rodolfo Vieira in this situation, you're betting him by submission. Armen Petrosyan will be at a 2-inch reach disadvantage. He is about a year younger. He is 4-1 in the UFC, and at least 2 impressive victories, at least that I can say. In the Contender Series, he got a first-round knockout over Kailan Kolev, October of 2021. A split decision victory over Gregory Rodriguez, where he landed 127 strikes to RoboCop 61. Got taken down twice, though. His loss came to Kyle Borrello. He outstruck him 31-12, but he got taken down 4 times. And it was like, I think that this was Kyle Borrello won the fight 30-27 on Doug Crosby and Saul Diamanto's scorecards. Mike Bell gave him 29-28. I'm always inclined to go against Mike Bell. The last 2 fights, Petrosian landed 118 strikes against A.J. Dobson to Dobson's 58. He did get taken down 3 times. And against Christian Leroy Duncan, he landed 89 strikes to CLD's 59. He got 1 takedown. His last 4 fights have gone to the judges' scorecards. I think both these fighters make sense as really affordable DFS options this week as well. Petrosian, has landed over 100 strikes twice and 89 plus in 3 of his 4 UFC wins. And the one in the Contender Series was a knockout. My concern is that Gregory Rodriguez took him down twice. Kolev took him down 3 times. Dobson took him down 3 times. And Petrosian was able to get 1 takedown against Christian Leroy Duncan. But, that is getting taken down a combined 12 times in his first 4 UFC fights. That can be very dangerous territory against Rodolfo Vieira, who, if he gets you down to the ground, he puts you in major danger immediately. So you don't want to go to the ground with Rodolfo Vieira. I think that this fight is rightfully, handicapped as a pick'em fight. I am going to say that for the purposes of picking a prop. All right, so straight up, I think this is a 50-50 fight. So I think I have to go Rodolfo because he's the underdog here, and I don't know if Petrosian is going to be able to keep Vieira from taking him down, and that's going to be a really big problem. Especially with the kind of fighter that Armen Petrosian is, Rodolfo Vieira is going to be highly incentivized to get him onto his back. Vieira, by submission, plus 175, hit it. Second best prop of this fight is Petrosian by decision, plus 275. That's if he keeps. I could see that going kind of similarly to the Chris Curtis fight, except I don't see him being able to avoid all the takedowns. Maybe he gets taken down once or twice, uses his striking volume to keep Vieira at bay, obviously avoids the submission, and, lands somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 to 80 strikes, kind of similar, like I said, to the Action Man fight. So I would go Vieira by submission here, plus 175, and then Armen by decision, plus 275. Next up, we got another middleweight matchup, Kyle Borrello against Abus Magomedov. Borrello, the minus 298 favorite. Abus Magomedov, the plus 240 underdog. This is how I feel about this fight.
Break out the red panties.
A great fight for guys, at least that there's interest at in the middleweight division. Borrello, like I said earlier, ranked 16th in the world at middleweight according to Tapology.com. Abus Magomedov ranked 49th in the world, 25-5-1. Let's start off with Abus Magomedov. 1-1 in the UFC. Won his debut against Dustin Stoltzfus with an early first-round knockout September of 2022. Hops back in against the UFC the future UFC middleweight champion, Sean Strickland. July of 2023. Now, as I recall, Abus Magomedov in round 1 was piecing Sean Strickland up. 32-11. I feel like he had him in danger. But then it was very clear that he had gassed out. Sean Strickland then lands 70 strikes to Abus Magomedov's 15 in the second round as he got put away. So, I think that is going to be the problem for Abus is, can you last past round 1? Because he showed against Sean Strickland, it's one thing if you you landed 70 strikes of your own at first and you gassed out, but he landed 32. You got to be able to replicate that in the next round, and he lost all steam. Cal Borello has not lost at the UFC level. He won a Contender Series fight against Aaron Jeffrey, who I've had on this podcast. Great guy, making his way up in the Bellator world. Kind of shocked a lot of people because that was looking like it was Aaron Jeffrey's UFC arrival party. Then they said, "We're not sure about you yet, kid. We're going to have you back on the Contender Series." Cal Borello comes back with a first-round knockout over Jesse Murray, October of 2021. I can't believe we've already been watching him that long. Then, 3 straight unanimous decision victories over Gadzi Armagadziev, Armen Petrosian, Makhmud Muradov, in which he only had to land a combined 62 strikes in those 3 fights with 6 takedowns to be able to come out with a unanimous decision victory in each against, at least a solid string of 2 opponents in Muradov and Armen Petrosian. Then, last time out, finally gets an inside-the-distance victory in the UFC. April of this year, outstrikes Michael Alexijuk 34-30, gets 3 takedowns to none, second-round rear naked choke. This is a fight, too, that, I just think that Cal Borello is going to have to withstand a first-round storm. Hopefully, it'll make for a much better fight if Abus Magomedov learns his lesson, or at least works on his cardio enough to where he can go more than 5 minutes. But if Cal Borello survives that first round, this is a guy that will take a fight with his reach and with his stand-up style down to a screeching halt. He only has to land 12 strikes for him to be able to beat you on the judges' scorecards decisively. If he gets Abus down to the ground a couple of times, keeps him at a distance past round 1, at least avoids getting 10-8'd, in the first round or hurt severely, that makes it Cal Borello's fight to lose. And I do think that maybe Cal Borello, I think based on what we saw in the last fight, Abus Magomedov cannot be trusted past the first round. I hope that changes. I really do. Borello, inside the distance, plus 100, hit it. And then, past that, because I think Borello wins this fight 75, 80 times out of 100 right now. I think that's what we have to say based on Abus's last fight against Sean Strickland. And that's weird to say, right? Because Sean Strickland's the UFC middleweight champion now. But we all know what we saw past round 1. Borello, by decision, I think is the second best pick, plus 215. Just if he decides to coast in for this victory and get another, 25 strikes, a couple of takedowns, cruise to a win. And then I would say right now, Abus by TKO knockout, plus 500. That is his best route to victory. But I'm not touching that one. Borello inside the distance. I like that. I'm not betting a straight-up victor here. Next up, for some reason, a fight that is above this on the main card. A heavyweight matchup between Rodrigo Nascimento and Dante Almeida. Nascimento, the minus 198 favorite. And, on first glance, so maybe Dante Almeida ends up being one of these guys that I'm too hard on. And maybe I look at, his most recent resume, and I am surprised to find that I think he has a better shot in this than I'm giving him credit for. But Rodrigo Nascimento being the minus 198 favorite, Mays being the plus 164 underdog, that seems closer than I expected. But let's get into it. Dante Almeida fighting out of Louisville, Kentucky, by the way. So let's start back because also weirdly these two have fought before. Why a rematch here? My first thought when this fight was originally announced was I can't believe those two haven't fought before. And then immediately I was like, wait, they have fought before. Dante Almeida, my God, he's got a loss to Cyril Gane. Hard to fault him too much for that. That loss to Rodrigo Nascimento, May of 2020 by second-round rear naked choke. Nascimento was outstriking him 32-27 with 2 takedowns. Mays gets a close win over Rocky Martinez November of 2020. A third-round knockout over Josh Parisian where he landed 6 takedowns. That no contest with Hamdi Abdel Wahab, a loss to Augusto Sakai by unanimous decision. He did not get knocked out. Credit to him there. He did get outstruck 53-29. Last time out, he gets a second-round knockout against Andrei Arlovsky, June of this year. Outstruck him 25-24 by the time that the fight was over. Rodrigo Nascimento. They were both born in 1992, by the way. An 80-inch reach. Dontel Mays, 81. These are two big dudes. Zay Kalmalia and Lord Kong. Great matchup of nicknames as well. So Rodrigo Nascimento, he beats Michael Martinek in the Contender Series with an arm triangle. He rear naked chokes Dontel Mays. Then a loss to Chris Daukaus when Chris Daukaus still looked like a viable heavyweight prospect. A no contest against Alan Badeau. Now he has rattled off 2 straight split decision victories. He gets outstruck 62-36 by Tanner Boser, but lands 3 takedowns to none. Then he gets taken down 2 takedowns to 0 against Zaire Latifi May of this year in his first fight in about a year, but outstrikes him 68-49. Here's the real thing. Rodrigo, you avoid a knockout here, and this should be your fight, right? I don't care if Dontel Mays outstrikes him a little bit. I don't care if Dontel Mays gets a couple of takedowns. I think just Rodrigo is in better position to do damage on every front. I think maybe this fight goes to decision, and maybe it doesn't get finished like their first fight did. I do think Dontel Mays has made some strides since then. And, I think Rodrigo has slowed down a little bit. But I don't think that necessarily changes whose hand is going to be raised at the end of this. But Dontel Mays, I will say.
Nick, one comment, man. One comment.
No, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
No reason to be scared, man. You're coming off a win over Andrei Arlovsky. You're a different fighter than you were a couple of years ago. I will give you credit for that. And representing local organizations to the tri-state area, fighting out of Louisville. Love to see it. I think Rodrigo wins this fight 60-65 times out of 100. I don't think Mays is a horrible pick. Maybe see if plus 165 creeps up a little bit to the plus 175, plus 185 range, where I would think about, taking Mays as a straight-up victor a little bit more. I think Rodrigo by submission is going to be the kind of obvious play, plus 200. I think Rodrigo by decision actually might be a little bit more likely, plus 240. I think that this fight doesn't go exactly how the first one did. So I put those in reverse order. Rodrigo by decision, plus 240, and then Rodrigo by submission, plus 200. I don't know exactly how Dontel Mays gets this done. If you're betting on Dontel Mays, I don't know. I think you go ahead and say maybe he catches him with a hard shot. Mays TKO knockout, plus 450. And then I would go Mays by decision, plus 380. That is a toss-up of a heavyweight fight for sure, though. And that's what that stretch of heavyweight fighters is kind of like right now. Rodrigo ranked 18th in the world. Mays ranked 21st in the world, according to Topology at heavyweight. And they're just kind of in a position right now where, they have to fight each other, again, that's the situation. Welterweight, co-main event. Gabriel Bonfim against Nicholas Dalby. Gabriel Bonfim, the minus 625 favorite. Dalby, the plus 455 underdog. Let's start with Nicholas Dalby. The Bonfims always seem to be heavily favored fighters. Most of the time, it looks like they're at minus 300 or above. Dalby, though, coming on 3 straight wins. Winner of 4 of his last 5. I mean, he was born in 1984. He is approaching that 40-year-old mark. And most of his career in the UFC, it started in 2015. But, this is by far the most successful stretch that he's been in. Starting in November 2020. And all those fights, only one fight in his whole UFC run didn't go to the judges' scorecards. This guy fights in close fights. So, he gets a unanimous decision victory against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, back in November of 2020. Gets outstruck 83-50, still gets the UD. His loss in that stretch June of 2021, unanimous decision in a super close fight, 54-53 in the striking. Got taken down once against Tim Dirty Bird Means, who you know I love. And I will say, to Nicholas Dalby already.
Nick, one comment, man. One comment.
Come on, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
Tim Means is a great fighter. There is no shame in that being your loss in an otherwise, fantastic winning streak when you got wins over Daniel Rodriguez and Muslim Salikov, which I'll get to here in a second. July of 2022, unanimous decision victory. He got taken down 4 times, landed a takedown against Claudio Silva, and outstruck him 45-11. January of this year, a split decision victory over Worley Alves, who he outstruck 119-66. Did get taken down once. And then June of this year, unanimous decision victory on the Vittori vs. Cannonier card. Outstrikes Muslim Salikov 86-57, 2 takedowns each. Gabriel Bonfim on the Contender Series, so he's landed 3 straight first-round submissions. A Von Flue and 2 guillotines over Trey Waters, September of 2022. Munir Lazez, January of this year. And Trevin Giles. He doesn't really give you much of an opportunity to fight your fight when he submits you that quick. Dalby does not lose a whole lot. And it has very rarely happened inside the distance. I think that this is one fight where still, I think that you have to say, Dalby has a little bit better of a chance than plus 455. Hell, we have seen very little, time out of Gabriel Bonfim. And the most that we saw out of him was in the Contender Series. Other than that, he's landed 12 combined strikes. His opponents have landed 10 combined strikes in the 2 fights since then. So it's really hard to say what we think happens if Gabriel Bonfim doesn't submit Nicholas Dalby early in this fight. I think Nicholas Dalby is actually worth a look as a heavy underdog just because of those factors that I just mentioned and the fighters that he has come out victorious against over these last few years when he's won 4 of his last 5 fights against a solid slew of opponents. So, I think Dalby does win this fight 35 times. I think 35 is fair right now. I think 40 might be a bit of a stretch, but I think 35, I think you could easily justify. So plus 455, maybe take a flyer on it. Maybe slap it. Ow! Now, Bonfim. I think that he is justified in being a heavy favorite. His first 3 fights suggest that this is just what this dude can do. Is just put you away really early. That's how dangerous his submission ability is. Bonfim by submission, plus 110. I think that's actually really, that's a surprisingly good number. So Bonfim by submission, I think you have to hit. Go ahead, hit it. And then, I don't know, Bonfim inside the distance? Minus 225, or do you go Bonfim by decision plus 330? I don't know. If you're betting that one, bet Bonfim by decision plus 110. Keep doing that until further notice. But otherwise, Nicholas Dalby, again.
Nick, one comment, man. One comment.
Come on, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
Don't take a nap on this man, Nicholas Dalby. He's been quietly winning in the UFC for a handful of years now. And now, folks, we are to the main event of the evening, a heavyweight matchup between the number 6 ranked heavyweight fighter in the world, Jailton Almeida. He was Derek Lewis's get out of Jailton free card, and Derek Lewis, the Black Beast, ranked 11 in the world according to Tapology.com. This was originally supposed to be Jailton versus Curtis Blades. It's Jailton versus the Black Beast, the main event.
Break out the red panties.
So obviously, Jailton versus Curtis Blades was it's obviously a very different test. Can you survive the takedown ability? Can you take a guy that is going to put you in some real, deep sand, deep quicksand, what his takedowns and what his ground and pound can be, the adversity that Curtis Blades brings in a fight. On the other note, Derek Lewis, and me and Connor Bone Sloan were having this conversation earlier in the week. Derek Lewis, of course, can knock out anybody in the world. Derek Lewis has no reason to be scared.
Nick, one comment, man. One comment.
No, don't be scared, homie. Come on.
This is always what will sell people on Derek Lewis, is that we've seen, and this is what bothered me too for years about supporting a fighter like Roy Big Country Nelson, is all we ever heard about was Roy Nelson's surprisingly good jiu-jitsu, which he never chose to utilize and it never translated to his MMA game. But all you ever heard about Roy Nelson was, all it takes is one shot. All it takes is one big shot, and it never came. The overwhelming time, when he was down in a fight, he was just getting beat to all hell, and he was content to do that and lose and still throw his big shots that would make people clap and cheer. But it led to constant disappointment and heartbreak for me as a Roy Nelson fan in that stretch of time. Derek Lewis is a guy who we have actually seen land that big shot. Now, that was all the way back in October of 2018, and Derek Lewis has fought a ton since then. That was actually after his win over Francis Ngannou, which is an absolute time warp. Derek Lewis has fought so many times in the UFC. Fought Matt Mitrione, Sean Jordan, Gabriel Gonzaga, Roy Nelson, Shamil Abdurakhimov, famously Travis Brown, Mark Hunt, Marcin Tybura. Ngannou, Volkov with a last-second Hail Mary knockout that I think you all remember where you were when you saw it. Daniel Cormier, JDS, Blagoy Ivanov, Alexei Olenek, Curtis Blades, who he absolutely starched. That was already 7 fights ago, February of 2021. He has lost 4 of his last 6 fights. Against Cyril Gahn, he got dominated, 98-16 in what was an interim heavyweight title fight. 98-16 in the striking, finished in round 3. Gets a knockout over Chris Daukaus. He bounces back December 2021, then 3 losses in a row, 2 knockouts against Tai Tuivasa and Sergey Pavlovich. Those losses look a little bit better in time, I suppose, especially Sergey. And then another loss to a Sergey where he got tossed around very early in that fight. 6 takedowns for Sergey Spivak in that first round en route to an arm triangle choke victory. You might remember somebody on this podcast, being me, told you that if you can bet Sergey Spivak by arm triangle choke to go ahead and do it, that's exactly what happened. Now, here's the thing, too. Derek Lewis bounces back with a first-round knockout victory over Marcus Rogerio de Lima very early, July of 2023, July 29th, 2023 at UFC 291, the Poirier vs. Gaethje rematch card. Landed 17 strikes to 1. He came up with a flying knee. He messed up Marcus Rogerio de Lima's teeth, what sounds like permanently. Rogerio de Lima's a guy that I really like. And I liked in that fight as a slept-on, underdog to slow down that pace of that fight and fight an MMA fight. He just got taken out of it early. And apparently he's saying he's having trouble eating food now because of the way that his teeth kind of are just not set right. Gives you nightmares. And Derek Lewis did that to that guy. So that's the story on Derek Lewis. And then you throw in this whole driving like Batman in that Lamborghini and then saying he doesn't even think it was him. Saying that he's going to go for a first-round leg lock against Jailton Almeida at the press conference. How can you... It's he will always get people to bet on him by TKO knockout. It's there, but the fact is this guy does lose fights. He's 27-11. He is far from invincible, especially against a guy like Jailton Almeida who, can hit hard in his own right, and if he gets this down to the ground, this could be over very quickly. So, Jailton Almeida, in the Contender Series, a round 2 rear naked choke, he's already won 6 fights at the UFC level, 3 in 2022, 2 this year. He's been climbing up the ranks at a very fast pace. So, 2nd round rear naked choke against Nasruddin Nasruddinov. That was September of 2021. Then a 1st round knockout over Danilo Marquez. a first-round rear naked choke against Parker Porter, a first-round rear naked choke against Anton Turkalej, a second-round knockout against Shamil Abdurakhimov, who he outstruck 45-1 with 3 takedowns to 0. Jesus Christ, into the second round. Absolute domination. And then very, very early in a headlined UFC Fight Night main event, dispatches of Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the first round with a rear naked choke. Jairzinho didn't get a strike off, 4 strikes to 0 for Jailton, and 1 takedown. That's all he needed. And like Derek Lewis has been getting finished a lot more than he used to. I mean, I guess he's always kind of, his losses have always been by finish, and so have his wins. He's never been invincible to an inside-the-distance loss. And so I think that this is kind of what can Jailton Almeida do? I think he can kind of do what Sergey Pavlovich can do. I think he can kind of do what Sergey Spivak can do. I think that he takes a lot of their best components and rolls it together in one. So, I think what I have to say happens here. I do not think this fight is going the distance. That is far from a hot take. Jailton, the minus 485 favorite. Derek, the plus 370 underdog. This fight under 2.5 rounds is minus 715. Makes sense. Fight goes to decision is plus 1100. So yeah, Derek Lewis by TKO knockout. If you're betting on him, that's what you do. And I don't think that number is high enough at plus 450. This is a fight just where I think that obviously if Derek Lewis lands a hard shot, he can win this fight, and that possibility is there. But that argument is a fallacy because it makes you just think about all the possibilities. All he has to do is land one shot. Sure. But he's landed a lot of shots in his UFC career. They're not all bombs that put people away. Plenty of them are, and they will shake your teeth loose for the rest of your life, apparently. But Jailton Almeida is a different beast right now. He's on his way. He's had the quality of wins that makes me believe that he can do this at this level. Derek Lewis can very well put him in danger. And Derek Lewis could very easily win this fight by TKO knockout if he lands the right shot. But ultimately, I think Jailton by submission, minus 135, I think that is the overall most likely outcome. I think both these guys, in their different ways, are going to be popular on DFS. I think Jailton is probably going to be like a $23 kind of guy on FanDuel, up in the 9,000s on DraftKings. Almeida by submission, minus 135, that is by far, his most likely outcome of victory. Lewis, there is one bet for him. It's by TKO knockout plus 450. I think Almeida, oh, damn. They do this to me, though. Almeida inside the distance is minus 450. If that number was even minus 200, you take it and you string together a parlay with it and you put, a fair amount of money on that because, but minus 450, damn. That doesn't even make Almeida by submission minus 135, Almeida by TKO knockout plus 180. How the hell does that translate to minus 450? Whatever. Yeah, so I think you Almeida by submission minus 135 then. I think that is the best value for him. And Almeida by TKO knockout plus 180, that's the second best. I don't know, but I think you just go by submission because I think Jailton, even if he does hurt Derek Lewis, I think if he does, if he finishes this fight smartly, even if he hurts Derek Lewis, you might as well take him down because I think Derek Lewis is going to be much more amenable to going out by tapping out than by getting knocked out. So it's an easier, just like for Sergey Spivak. So yeah, I'm settling on that. Almeida by submission minus 135. Almeida wins this fight, I think 80 times out of 100. Hit it. And folks, with that, that is it for for episode 115 of RotoBallers official MMA podcast. Tap that. Looking forward to UFC Sao Paulo this weekend. And again, I will be in the RotoBaller MMA Discord from 4 to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Be there. Get square. We'll talk about UFC Sao Paulo, the DFS and sports betting strategy for the whole card. Follow me on Twitter at RotoBrady. That's where I make picks for all major MMA events. We got Rise and Landmark 7 this weekend, One Fight Night 16, Octagon 48, LFA 171. There's Cage Fury stuff going down on UFC Fight Pass. That's where I made picks for it on Twitter at RotoBrady. Follow, like, subscribe, leave favorable comments and reviews. Spread the love for the podcast at Tap That MMA Podcast. That is on the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and on Spotify. Check out my recent interlude episodes with Hawaiian fighters. The Flying Hawaiian, Joshua Pereira, flyweight prospect out of Columbus, Ohio, and Kai Kamaka III, the Fighting Hawaiian. That one was with Connor Bone Sloan. Those are both great conversations. Go check them out. Kai Kamaka, that's a guy on a 3-fight Bellator winning streak. They have him ranked as number 91 at featherweight in the world on Tapology. I think he is better than that. So go check out those conversations. Those were a lot of fun. I am proud of that product. Folks, have yourselves a great weekend. The UFC's back on. We got UFC 295 next weekend. A bunch of excitement popping off. A bunch of MMA this weekend. Have yourselves a good time. Peace.